Going over XRP real fast. It's so mind-blowing to me that people would rather pay attention to hype over accuracy. Man, this Discord is so vast. Sometimes I even get lost. Okay, here we are, Cypress analysis section. And if we scroll up a couple of days ago, I had mentioned to you guys, I said, pay close attention to a possible sell delta held pattern on Canton. If we cannot turn this dark pool into a support and break bullish above the gold zone, i.e. the number 3, if we can break bullish above the gold zone, it would invalidate the sell delta held pattern, and we could see the next leg up into 19 cents. If this does end up turning into a sell delta held pattern, my next bearish target is the 13,480 for my first DCA position. And as always, I send this to you guys days in advance. That was 3 days ago on January 3rd. And last night, the sell delta held pattern played out, and we did come down into the dark pool of the 13,480. So real fast, just taking a look at that, all right? Because that level has acted as a support now. My positions are slightly in profit, nothing exponential. But nonetheless, the analysis and the levels that we pay attention to here in this community have proven accurate yet again, time and time over and over, like they usually do, right? So what I was seeing, explaining the sell delta held pattern to you guys, is back when I had sent that analysis on January 3rd, so you guys can see price came up. We're on the 15-minute time frame. Actually, maybe this will be a little clearer on the hourly. Yeah, there we go. So price came up into the 15,898 institutional dark pool. And you can see we had this last bullish push to the upside that stalled out. Buyers got trapped at highs and sellers became aggressive enough to break a previous support. So I was looking at this for the sell delta held as the 1. Okay. I was looking at the break in structure. You could even look at, it doesn't really matter in my personal opinion which one you look at, but this could have been your 2. However, this structural low was also violated with this wick here. So this could have even been your 2 or a break of support and shift in momentum. And then what I was looking at for the sell delta held to be confirmed is we can see from the high down to the low, taking a fib, what I was annotating as the gold zone, where price would need to break back above to invalidate this sell delta held pattern. I was just highlighting the 79% to 62% discount, taking off the fib, and saying that if price were to break above the gold zone, retest it as support, and continue higher, it would invalidate the bearish thesis. We didn't get that. And instead, you guys can see taking a fib from the high of the 1 down to the 2, we actually constantly saw sellers defend here at the 50% retracement. So here's the 50% retracement. Sellers trapped buyers, buyers made another attempt to break above the dark pool, failed, got trapped. And yet again, 4th time, buyers made an attempt to defend, become aggressive, sellers trapped buyers, pushed price back to the downside. And then we see another sell delta held pattern that pushed us all the way back down into the delta, or excuse me, I keep saying delta, but dark pool to dark pool. Literally, this is so crazy that we have these levels from dark pool straight down to dark pool. You cannot make this stuff up. So here we have another 1, 2, 3 pattern. Here's the 1. We have a slight violation of the high here that broke support. You could look at this as the break of support, or this is the break of support. Nonetheless, this A to B move is now the new down leg, taking a fib from the high down to the low. Price came up into the 79% discount, failed to break above the dark pool yet again, and then went from the 15,989 straight down into the 13,480, where we have now recently seen a bounce. All right. So now that you guys have seen that pattern play out that I was annotating to you guys days ago, and our first DCA levels have now come into fruition, what should we be paying attention to next? On the hourly time frame, we can clearly see that right now the triple moving average is acting as a resistance. So the first thing that I would ideally like to see on Canton to invalidate that lower levels are possibly going to come into fruition. The first thing that I would like to see now, considering that we have violated a microstructure high. So you can see If we're looking at this in terms of structure, here's a low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low formation. This bullish move has now violated this most recent high. We would ideally like to see this dark pool hold as a base. And so what would invalidate a continuation move to the downside is if we see buyers become aggressive enough to defend this dark pool and push price higher. A deep retracement, a nice wick beneath the low, buyers trapping sellers, shifting momentum, turning the 13,480 into a support, and coming back up into the 15,898. A medium retracement back down into the dark pool, holding it as support and continuing the trend higher, or just a continuation move from where we currently stand. If we can see either of these three scenarios, it would invalidate the bearish thesis that I'm about to give you guys. If we ever do break back up into the institutional dark pool at the 15,898, we would need to see it flip and turn into support. Buyers become aggressive enough to trap sellers and push higher. If that happened, that would open the door for 19,214, possibly even higher prices at the 22,582. All right. So right now, the most immediate support is the institutional dark pool at the 13,480, possibly even a slight drop beneath it to maybe come down into this lower level here to then push back to the upside. Getting rid of the bullish thesis. Okay, paying attention to this move from roughly around 12.5 cents up into the high of 17.5 cents. If we can violate this low, and we also violate the dark pool, and we turn the dark pool into a resistance, and we start to see lower lows and lower highs underneath of it, that for me is going to open the door for a deeper correction, possibly back down to the buy delta, where we had this massive bullish move, or at least correcting more of this previous bullish move from all the way back on December 26th, the day after Christmas. That would send us back down into the lows of around the 0.9453. I'm not going to wait for the 0.9453 to come into fruition before I start dollar cost averaging. I will probably start to dollar cost average if we break underneath of the 13,480 and continue to dollar cost average in as price trails down, just in case at any areas of interest over here to the left-hand side, buyers find their footing and start to defend. But if we did break beneath the 13,480, it does open the door for deeper retracements down to the next dark pool at the 0.9453. Depending on market sentiment, keep in mind, I have a pessimistic view for the total cryptocurrency market before we see a massive bullish recovery. I personally just think it makes so much more sense before these institutions flood in for them to drop price one last time. And so just knowing that the lower level dark pools that we have on our radar still come in at the 0.5893, below that, the 0.260, and below that, worst case scenario on our radar, we have the 0.0010, where I will 110% be looking to buy more Canton if those levels materialized and came into fruition. On the 8-hour time frame, what I am noticing right now is that the triple moving average is acting as a support at around the 13,480. So if we were to see a break of the 13,480, we would likely see a triple moving average crossover. And if we can see that and it act as a resistance, that would definitely open the door and solidify a deeper retracement down, correcting more of this previous bullish move, which is not a bad thing. In my personal opinion, it would be a healthy correction on Canton, considering the run that we had from 5 cents up into 17.5 cents, right? So levels to be mindful of and paying attention to. Right now, the 13,480 is acting as a support. Let's see how the fundamentals play out in the coming days ahead. We have labor market data throughout the remainder of this week. If we can see supportive labor market data, i.e. the cooling in the labor market without sparking recessionary fears that support continued odds of rate cuts from the Federal Reserve, we see no geopolitical headlines that spark demand for safe haven assets, and we see a more favorable backdrop for risk sentiment, then maybe we can see higher prices on Canton in the days ahead. And if not, I'm well prepared for lower levels. Okay. So you guys have the upper boundaries and lower boundaries to be mindful of. Going over XRP real fast. It's so mind blowing to me that people would rather ignore accuracy or pay attention to hype over accuracy. So yesterday I delivered an updated analysis utilizing the institutional software, the order flow for you guys. I don't know if you guys saw that. I released it publicly on Twitter and YouTube. And everybody was talking about XRP to higher prices. Everybody was saying that we're going to see a moonshot, right? They got overly excited and overly stimulated. And here in this community, I mentioned to you guys utilizing the software that we needed to see a break above the institutional sell walls that existed up here at around 33 to 36 cents. And if not, we were likely to see a retracement back down to the dark pool at 227. Now, to continue with the optimism, what I did mention is that the last area of support is this $2 threshold, where utilizing the institutional order flow, we had a sell wall that existed at $2 that we did see buyers break above and turn into support here. This for me is my last, I'd say, oh shit level, where as long as we can hold above the $2 threshold, I'm not expecting any lower prices on XRP. But it would be healthy for us to correct back down into the 50 EMA before buyers reaccumulate orders and try to make an attempt to defend. So my first bullish thesis on XRP is that this retracement and profit taking continues, especially if the sentiment over the next consecutive couple of days worsens before buyers start to reload and try to make an attempt to defend. Second analysis would be a medium retracement down into the 18 EMA before buyers make an attempt to defend to push price higher. And then the last one would be if buyers can defend at the 227, turn it into support, then possibly we could see a move and a rally higher. What would invalidate this bullish thesis is if we see a risk off sentiment, meaning we see later on in the week any fundamentals like recessionary fears because of the dwindling labor market data. Maybe we see a huge misprint in labor market figures, or maybe we see labor market data that comes out resilient and strong that pushes back on the rate cut expectations and signals a higher for longer interest rate environment. That would also dampen the market sentiment. Maybe we see geopolitical escalations, tensions in the Middle East, Venezuela, China, Taiwan, any of those jurisdictions, Russia, Ukraine, spark some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and more demand for safe haven assets. We're likely to see profit taking continue to unfold in crypto. An invalidation of my bullish thesis would be if XRP breaks below $2 and turns the previous support here into a resistance. If that were to happen, my immediate bearish targets would be at the next dark pool at $1.84 for a possible reaccumulation of orders and buyers to defend. If sentiment worsens below $1.84, the next area of interest I have marked off on my charts is $1.69. I don't have any other areas of interest marked off on my charts because I'm sure that we'll have an update before that level or area comes into fruition. But just keep in the back of your mind that the lowest level dark pool and delta that we have on our radar right now, I believe, comes in at 88 cents via the new update. Okay. It would definitely take an extreme risk off catalyst to get us there, like Japanese yen carry trade unwinding aggressively, Japanese yen intervention with the currency, some type of spark in geopolitical sentiment that creates a huge demand for safe haven assets, maybe even a vote on Trump's tariffs that don't go in favor of Trump's tariffs that create a whole bunch of market uncertainty. It would definitely create, or it would definitely need a catalyst for us to see those lower levels, but it is not off of the table. All right. So for now, price is still holding above the $2 threshold, which keeps me optimistic that XRP price can continue with this overall trend higher. Taking a look at our upside targets, obviously, of course, a sustainable break and hold above the $2.27 dark pool would be much needed in order to see higher prices. Slightly above that, we're likely to see profit taking at the next two dark pools at 249 or 263 if those do materialize and come into fruition. Mind you, again, the highest dark pools that came on our radar, where we know that institutional sells sit at those levels in 2025, I'm going to go outright and assume that those have not dissipated yet from the market. We're at the $4.44 range and $5.17 range, where I will personally be looking to take out some XRP profits. Not a whole bunch, but I'll probably sell 10 or 20,000 coins of my XRP and rotate that back in at an institutional dark pool if we do see some profit taking unfold at those higher levels, if they ever do materialize and come into fruition. But we have some levels to achieve and overcome before that even comes into fruition. All right. So right now we are still seeing some profit taking. The total cryptocurrency market is down $52 billion. Taking a look real fast at the total cryptocurrency market. Remember yesterday in our update, I said to you guys, don't get too optimistic. When we come back up into this higher area, I haven't even erased my drawings. I said, if we start to see buyers get trapped at these highs and sellers become aggressive, then this is just going to turn into a bull trap. And we're likely to see price come all the way back down into this base. Right now, as of time of recording, that seems to be what is taking shape. It is not solidified yet. This could just turn into a pullback or a sell to buy, depending on how the data comes out the remainder of this week. So hopefully we see risk on in the data, cooling in the labor market without sparking fears of a recession, and allowing the market to continue to price in rate cuts from the Fed with no geopolitical tensions driving demand for safe haven. We see profit taking on gold. We don't see any yen carry trade unwind scares. We see a weaker yen, weaker gold, weaker silver, weaker dollar, and that would set the backdrop for a continuation in the total cryptocurrency market. If we can break above where we see sellers have recently defended once, twice, three, and now four times, the next area of interest and hurdle that we need to overcome is all the aggressive sellers that trapped buyers here in this area, or the passive sellers that then became aggressive, pushing price lower, breaking support up at $3.5 trillion. If we can hold bullish above 3.1 and we can hold bullish above 3.5, that would be the solidification for me that the bottom is in, and we're likely to see a full-blown recovery in the total cryptocurrency market. Until that happens, until we turn 3.5 into support, I'm not getting overly optimistic on any of these bullish bounces that we see between now and then. All right. Hopefully that gave you guys a good fundamental backdrop or technical analysis backdrop on Canton, XRP, and the total cryptocurrency market.